Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton and Sergio Perez had their fair share of moments around the tight streets of Monaco. The result? Those cars had to be lifted with the use of a crane, which revealed the most important part of these modern Formula One cars. That is the underfloor, and thanks to the quick thinking of photographers, who were able to get quick snaps of the underside of the cars. Thanks to these images, we are able to get a good look at the floors and compare how each work. The three cars share a common general aesthetic. You'll notice a protrusion running down the middle of each floor. To provide room for items like the fuel tank, battery, and heavy powertrain components, this component is low to the ground. The center of gravity of the car is lowered by keeping all of these heavy components close to the ground. A car with a low center of gravity will move less during acceleration, deceleration, or turning, giving the driver a more stable platform and better overall handling. There are two curving parts on either side of this flat protrusion. The floor is therefore farther off the ground at the front and rear of the car. It's this shape that creates what is known as a Venturi tunnel. The air is traveling more slowly and is in a high pressure area towards the front and back of the floor. There is less room for the air to get through as it passes from the front to the back of the car. As a result, the air in the center travels considerably more quickly, generating a region of lower pressure that in turn produces downforce. When you have a low pressure area, air will try to get into that area to equalize the pressure. The ground effect floor will stop providing downforce if this occurs in the current Formula One car because the pressure under the floor will return to normal. To avoid this, the teams try stopping air getting to the floor from the sides. Teams accomplish this by primarily using two techniques. There are several vanes visible at the front of the floors. They assist in easing some of this issue. The vanes clean the air that travels under the car and guide some air away from the floor while also generating vortices in that air. As they rise as they exit the back of the floor, these vortices produce even more downforce. The creation of vortices at the floor edge comes next. The vortices along the floor edge acts as a seal between the floor and outside flowing air, preventing outside air from intervening the underfloor's airflow. This proves how important the floor of a modern Formula One car is. So, let's analyze what Red Bull, Mercedes and Ferrari have done with their floors in 2023. The Red Bull floor will be our first stop. In order to understand the adjustments the team has made for 2023, it is first important to recall how the Red Bull floor appeared the previous year. On the floor from the previous year, we could tell that it already has a lot more detailed features than the others. The larger throat and smaller center section were Red Bull's enhancements from the previous year's floor. In order to increase the airflow underneath the car, this design was used for the underfloor. The 2022 floor also has steps at the back to reactivate the center airflow and enable the diffuser to perform more effectively. To prevent issues like porpoising, metal skids were added to the floor design at the side to prevent the floor edge from touching the ground. The metal skids aid in maintaining a consistent distance from the ground. Let's now examine Red Bull's floor for 2023. One thing to keep in mind is that the side of the floor that experienced the crash has a peculiar structure. We can see that the Red Bull floor is still quite intricately designed. The large throat and other characteristics of the Red Bull floor have not changed. However, the front strakes now feature metal tips despite having a similar design. The fact that they are now black suggests that Red Bull is utilizing a different material even if it appears that the team is still using metal skids at the sides of the floor edge. At the rear of the center section, there are 3 steps. The diffuser can work harder and generate more downforce because to these tiny ramps, which create vortices that blend strong and weak flow towards the center wall. Red Bull is attempting to use as much of the floor's volume as is permitted by the rules by constructing a complexly built floor with numerous elements, leaving only the center structure, which is more typical of the rest of the field. These vertical kicks on the back of the subfloor are a brand new addition by Red Bull to the floor. The distance between the floor and the road increases quickly at a kick point in the floor. The traveling air transitions from a low pressure to a high pressure zone at this kick point, producing significant downforce. Only a squad that is knowledgeable about its operations can successfully use these kick points. Here Red Bull's Adrian Newey's knowledge from his work with ground effect cars in the past is useful. Kicks can aid in better pressure distribution, which will increase downforce. In 2022, Red Bull had a very gentle vertical expansion. However, they have since had time to focus on the little things to make improvements, and these kicks are one of them. Red Bull also would have had taken a look at the 2022 Mercedes and Ferrari floors, as both teams use kicks on their floors. Red Bull may be attempting, with the kicks, to significantly increase the airflow during routine driving. If the support or loads on the rear of the floor decrease, the airflow beneath the floor may also become overloaded. This may be how Red Bull achieves the triple DRS effect, for instance. The load on the diffuser will decrease when the DRS flap opens, since the load on the rear wing will also decrease. As a result, the load acting on the rear underfloor is completely reduced, which could lead to a separation of the airflow around the floor's kick points. Less downforce is generated as a result of this phenomenon, which reduces drag. This may be how Red Bull is able to take advantage of a significant gain from the use of DRS. Now let's examine the Mercedes floor. At Monaco, the team simply unveiled a new floor, thus this is a brand new component that we will now analyze. In 2022, the Mercedes floor used to be the simplest floor out of the top runners. But the new Monaco floor shows that Mercedes has absorbed design influences from its competitors, especially Red Bull. The Mercedes floor has a large throat and they have 2 steps at the back now to energize the airflow. The front strakes have a very similar shape to the Red Bull underfloor. However, compared to the Red Bull, the major air channels are mild and smooth, not as intricate. The lack of kicks in the new Mercedes floor may be owing to their prior experience with them. It makes the most sense for Mercedes to have a much simpler underfloor in order to have a predictable and understandable car. It's intriguing that the silver arrows use metal edges at the diffuser and floor edge rather than skids like the Red Bull or Ferrari. The Mercedes floor features less detailing than its rivals' floors, perhaps since this is the team's first iteration. We can observe increasingly subtle changes to the flooring as the season goes on. Let's now discuss about the Ferrari floor. Last year, Ferrari's floor was pretty simple, and it remains so this year. In order to have a better seal to the floor edges, Ferrari also uses a big throat at the entry and we can observe skids at the sides. Unlike the Red Bull underfloor, there are no steps in the back, but there is still a relatively narrow rear center section. However, the main channel has no kick points and is incredibly smooth and simple. Ferrari intentionally has kept its floor design very simple. It is to have a predictable platform and to produce stable downforce in most situations. This is done to make the car a lot more consistent, something that gives drivers confidence to push the car to its limit. In comparison to the Red Bull floor, much more details, such as kicks on the rear of the floor, could be added on the Ferrari for better downforce generation. So, we can say that the Ferrari floor could be worked more harder, with more intricate details added to it. Red Bull presented a sound idea to these technical rules from the start, so they had enough of time in the facilities to perfect the finer points of its floor. And the outcome? The Red Bull features a floor that is both intricate and spectacular. Ferrari has always had and still has a simple floor in order to prevent issues. Mercedes made significant progress compared to their 2022 basic floor, but the Mercedes floor appears to be much more simpler than the Red Bull. Additionally, the fact that Red Bull employs forceful vertical kicks while the other 2 teams do not, tells us a lot about Red Bull's level of growth and the depth of their understanding of floor performance. Given engineers estimate 60% of car performance is now generated by the underbody aerodynamics following the 2022 switch to ground effect rules, teams have kept this area a closely guarded secret. The last thing Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull would have wanted would have been rivals getting a crystal clear look at the floor on their respective cars. The area of these cars which is claimed to offer up the biggest gains, but that is exactly what they got, courtesy of a crash by their drivers. Mercedes trackside engineering director Andrew Chauvelin reckoned Red Bull, which has won every race so far this season, would be far more the most annoyed team, having its hard and smart work revealed. So what do you guys think? We would love to hear your thoughts on the team's different floors in the comments section down below. And on your way down, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified of our future uploads to keep yourselves up to date about the 2023 Formula 1 season.